Well, hello and a very warm welcome to the IrishRacing.com Cheltenham Festival 2022 special. Special being the operative word because I'm sure you've seen our panel of guests here. We'll always, as ever, have Vincent Finegan and Stephen Harris with me, but also the very special guest for this show, Danny Mullins, Grade 1 Cheltenham Festival winning jockey, is on the panel. Danny, how are you? You well?
Good, yeah, it's great to be on, and yeah, so hopefully we're going to have plenty of fun.
Absolutely. Always look forward to your insight, and hopefully you'll give away a few clues and secrets from the Irish angle, shall we say? Vincent, you keeping well? You've been reminding me in the build up to this. It's going to be about a 26-2 drubbing in regards to Ireland versus the home team. Are you still confident? Are you getting a few nerves as we get closer to the day?
Yeah, like everyone else, it's getting to that squeaky bum time, isn't it? We've have to see Energamine had a stone bruise during the week. Hopefully he's back on track for the champion chase, and the same with a lot of the other races. We just hope all these horses stay good for the next 10, 12 days.
Well, Stephen, I've been one of the few people who's been kind of throwing it out there that the home team are going to offer some kind of resistance. I think you've got on record a quote saying the Irish form was stone better. 2 months ago, the Irish form is 2 stone better. And I think you even got in the Irish form is 3 stone better on the show last week. So as far as you're concerned, it's going to be a wash with Irish winners at Presby Park.
Well, I do think that 19 or more, which is 10 to 11, is an absolutely massive price. I think that's the nap of the weekend, to be honest. If it's 18, there'll be some very long faces here. We'll be struggling to find the money for the next meal, to be honest. But no, it should be a cracking week. What do you think the weather's going to be like, and what do you think the ground's going to be like? You're local to Cheltenham. It's been pretty wet up there, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been absolutely hammering it down all week. I spoke to people at the course a couple of days ago. It was official. If the racing was due to start now, it'd be officially soft all over. At the moment, it's clear blue skies and sun. I think for the next 3 or 4 days, it's going to be decent. The outlook doesn't look like there's any kind of extremes. I think there's odd bits of showers and sun kind of intermittent. And obviously, as we get closer to the racing, the weather forecast becomes a bit more sketchy. But by and large, I think it's going to be a blend of soft and good to soft. It'll be on the slow side to begin with, I think. But looking further afield, how it goes beyond that, I'm not sure we'll know. But I mean, that is something worth touching upon as we kick on to the opening race, of course, on the Tuesday, which will be the Supreme Novice Hurdle, the curtain raiser. And of course, we're going to have fans back in attendance, punters going delirious. The ground probably slightly on the slow side as a guesstimate at the moment. Danny, we'll come to you first. Obviously, Cheltenham last year, it was eerie, it was bizarre. An empty arena, horses crossing the winning line, barely a ripple of applause to be heard. I bet you're really excited as someone in that atmosphere to be getting back stuck into it once again.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it was something different in Cheltenham last year, and hopefully, you know, this year it's going to be back to what the owners really look forward to all season, that real buzz, that the feel in the parade ring beforehand, that cheer of winners coming in afterwards. But for us on the track, there was no inch given last year, and there won't be again this year.
No, absolutely. And as I mentioned, the Supreme Novices gets it all going. This is a race which has really been whetting the appetite of Jump To It viewers on IrishRacing.com and the whole racing world alike. Constitution Hill, Sir Gerhard, Dice at Dynamo, John Bond, Kilcret. I mean, the list goes on. This is a bit of a who's who of classy novice hurdlers, isn't it, Danny? I mean, your type of angle in here, I suppose you're not going to give much away from the Mullins camp, but all you can say is that, I mean, Sir Gerhard clearly has plenty of speed. Dice at Dynamo showed lots of speed. Constitution Hill's bolted up in everything he's done. I mean, would there be a kind of preference for you in terms of which horse you would like to be on if you were going to be on one of the big 3 or 4, shall we say?
I think what John Bond has achieved so far this season has been fantastic. You know, people made remarks about him being a bit keen early on in his first few races. Those were races that were run at a dawdle of a gallop. Him and Haydock the last day, where they went a true gallop all the way. His jumping held up again. It was very good all the way down the straight. And I think that slick jumping is really what's going to stand to him around here. The Supreme, you know, it's a 2-mile race, but it can often end up being a slog to the finish. But if you don't jump well down the back, and you miss hurdles coming down the hill, you're out of the race. And to me, John Bon ticks all the boxes with that slick jumping. Sir Gerhard is, joint favourite at the moment, but he's much shorter for the Ballymore, which suggests that might be where he'll go. I'm sure Willie won't make up his mind until the 11th hour on that. Nicky Henderson has said Constitution Hill and John Bon are going to take each other on, which is great to see. It'll make a fantastic race between them, and hopefully Dicer Dynamo can get in the mix. From the Mullins camp, I'd love to see Dicer Dynamo come out and beat some of the Henderson horses, but I think John Bon is the one that I'd like to be on here.
Fascinating. That just to play devil's advocate, John Bon got pretty worked up and pretty sweaty at Haydock. Clearly, punters allowed back on a race course, 70,000 fans packed in, going absolutely bonkers. Is there just a chance you could flip the lid of the temperament of that individual? Or you just think it's one of those things, and if he's got the class, he'll come through?
I think he'll be okay. Aidan Coleman, I presume Aidan's going to ride him again. He's ridden him a good few times. He'll get him down to the start, chilled out. And, once the horses leave the parade ring, they get down to shoot. They have 2 or 3 minutes to chill out at the start. If Nicky Henderson is really worried about that, I'm sure he'll have somebody down there at the start to help him relax again. But I wouldn't worry about it. Horses can sweat up and still win. And the fact is, he's probably going to sweat up again in the Supreme, given that he's done it before. And no, I think he'll be okay. He can jump and travel through the races. If in Haydock he didn't finish the race out well, then I'd question it. But the fact he put down his head and galloped all the way to the line in Haydock, that gives me no worries about him getting upset beforehand.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And I wonder if Nicky Henderson, he's deployed the earplugs before, hasn't he, on a few of his fizzy individuals? I wonder if that may be seen again. Vincent, I'd like to bring you in here from the Irish angle, continuing, if you like. I mean, of those at the top of the market, there's a lot of head scratching going on here because it's just looks so classy. I mean, are you with Team Ireland in this assignment, or do you think this could be one going to 7 Barrows, or do you envisage something left of field, perhaps, we're being a little bit disrespectful to, really getting the shake-up in the opener?
Well, the first thing to take note of here is that this is a desperate race for favourites. Last 30 years, we've had four winning favourites, 2 joint favourites, and all the rest have got stuffed. So there's a case for saying, ignore everything and just go with what your gut feeling is on some of these, realistic, because the form here, they're novices. It's a grade 1. They're very inexperienced, most of them. They've only had 2-3 runs over hurdles. Anything can happen here. There could be a fly in the ointment somewhere we haven't seen, something that's improved over the last 6 weeks out of all proportions and could easily win. For me, the one thing here is I'm pretty convinced, and have been for quite a while, that Sir Gerhard runs here rather than the Ballymore. He's a very free-running type, and he's a champion bumper winner as well. I think Willie, just seeing what he's done with certain horses in the past, he tends to prefer to go for the Supreme with these type of horses. I don't think he'd stay the Ballymore trip. He's too keen. He'd probably make the running. He's made the running on both of his hurdle starts. He made all in the bumper under Rachel last year as well. So he's most likely going to be making the run and tanking along, and he won't stay at Ballymore trip, in my opinion. The one question mark about him, as Danny has said here, is the jumping. He's made mistakes in both races, minor mistakes, admittedly, but he's made mistakes. But his level of form is unbelievable. Like you take John Bon. John Bon, when he won one of his races in the UK, he beat an Irish horse called Colonel Mustard by 2 3/4 lengths. The last day, Sir Gerhard beat that horse by 12 lengths. So there's a fair gap here. And Sir Gerhard, for me, he ticks every box, bar the jumping. That's the only question mark. But then again, he's had 2 goes over. They're only minor errors. I presume he's schooled well since. And I'm pretty certain he'll go here rather than the Ballymore. And I'd like to be on him.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? I mean, there was a very high-class field, it seemed, beforehand on paper last time out, and afterwards, they're all coming home in different postcodes. Stephen, I'd like to bring you in. Sir Gerhard clearly looks the part. However, 7 Barrows have a very strong hand into this. Danny's already alluded to the claims of John Bon, but Constitution Hill been a runaway winner on his debut at Sandown in a lightning quick time, and then again, they didn't really see which way he went when he bounded clear in the Tolworth. Admittedly, both runs on pretty soft ground, but it's hard not to be impressed by how the Nicky Henderson representative has gone about his business.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ground's key, to be honest. Of the 2 Henderson runners, Constitution Hill is a 3-mile chaser who wants really deep ground, basically. John Bonner's got loads of speed. He wants good ground, ideally. So where we are, if it's good to soft, I think it'll be a fair race between the two of them. I really like Constitution Hill. The form of that Tolworth, the tailed off 4th and 5th have come out and bolted up since the horse of Gary Moore's, and the tailed off 5th come and won in the week. So it's pretty good form. He's a straightforward ride. He jumps well. The one thing about Sir Gerhard, I think, that race in Ireland last time out, the whole world was on. It was a 1-horse market. The front 2 jumped off miles clear of the rest. I didn't think he jumped particularly well. He had dead aim at every hurdle. Now, he's a young horse. I'm sure he's trained by a genius. I'm sure he'll iron that out. But he won't get a soft lead in this race. I mean, apart from anything else, his stablemate has made the running at a brisk pace, Desert Dynamo twice. So it'd be very interesting. I suspect they might avoid each other, to be honest. I think Danny might be right about Sir Gerhard. He might go for the Ballymore. I wouldn't be at all surprised. But of the two, I'm very ground dependent. But I do think Constitution Hill is the standout favourite on what he's actually achieved over John Bon. It's just if we happen to have a dry week and the ground dried out, I've always thought John Bon was an Aintree horse. I can see him gliding round there in a month's time on better ground. Whereas Constitution Hill, usually these Supremes are slogs. They're not one on the bridle, and I can see Constitution Hill grinding them into the dust. But I said to Vincent just before, as a bookmaker, putting your bookmaker's hat on, you're going to look at the race. You'll be able to lay the front 3 or 4. They'll bet you mega odds on all of them. And you've still got 3 or 4 horses of Willie and Gordon's who are unexposed novices running for you very cheaply. So it would be a temptation if they shortened right up at the front of the market.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff and clearly ground dependent. If the rains really did arrive, I thought Mighty Potter's interesting one in coming into this. But very quickly, to wrap up the spree, horse we must mention, I believe Patrick Mullins is going to ride, is Kilcrut. Of course, he showed some excellent bum performance. Taken a while to come to hand, Danny, over hurdles, but there seems to be this kind of feeling coming out the Willie Mullins camp that he's just starting to click. I mean, what's your view on him?
Yeah, he looks in great shape at home. I suppose it was disappointing. You know, he got beat in Cork. Maybe some of Willie's horses hadn't really hit form by the time of early December, but he went back to Leopardstown at Christmas and he was third. He was an odds-on favourite that day, but I suppose the form is fairly decent to what he was behind. Manila Crooner was second in a Grade 1 and Journey With Me is well fancied for the Ballymore. So it's still not a bad run, but it was great to see him win in Punchestown. Unknown form, I think he'd have to improve, but you know, he was very unlucky in the bumper last year not to chin Sir Gerhard, and you know, he definitely couldn't be out of this. And at an each way price, what Vincent has said about favourites having a bad record in the race, there's definitely a lot of value with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Often you have loads of unexposed horses, but this year, more than ever, as you can probably tell, I'm incredibly excited about this contest. Really, really does look a spellbinding renewal of the
just
Supreme
on
Novices.
The weather as well, Ed. Just looking at the long-term forecast, on Friday the 11th, there's 7 mils forecast. Saturday the 12th, there's 15 mils forecast, and then Sunday has 2 or 3 as well. So the last few days on the long-term forecast look to have plenty of rain in it.
Absolutely. I've tied myself in knots though with these weather forecasts, and the ground's ended up good to firm. So yeah, but no, you are right to say that it's definitely going. There is some rain around, and I can't imagine we're going to get the inverted commas spring ground as we used to get in the olden days. We must move on to the Arkle now. Second race on your cards on the opening day. Edwardstone, generally your 9-4 favourite. Blue Lord, Riviere de Tal, 7-2 shots. Hoot and Color, 13-2, 8-1 Saint Sam, 14s bar. Danny, Edwardstone, a horse of Alan King's here, trained obviously over in these shores, who's done absolutely nothing wrong over fences. I mean, what's the Irish kind of angle on him? Are you impressed, or do you think he's perhaps a little bit of a sitting duck for what looks a very strong Irish challenge, as you would expect?
I think he's very good in what he's done so far. You can't really fault him. Warwick is a real test of any novice, and his win in the Kingmaker was good. You know, those 5 fences down the far side in Warwick, they find out any holes in a novice, you know, 2 miles around there. It's a great trial for the Arkle. He's came through every test. He's won a speed track in Kempton, stiff finish in Sandown. Yeah, I think he definitely deserves to be favourite, and You know, if the English win the first 2 races, but Irish boots will be shaking a little bit then. I think they have a good chance of it. Revere de Tel and Blue Lord, I suppose they're fairly closely matched. On their Leopardstown run, had Revere de Tel jumped the last, I think she would have beat him that day, and still gets her allowance. She gets her mare's allowance, although she doesn't get the 4-year-old allowance, which Gordon Elliott very cleverly used earlier in the season to rack up a few wins with her. There's plenty of others. Of Willie's, Hot and Calours fell early. You would have loved to see what he could achieve in the Irish Arkle. St. Sam missed a fence down the back there and just flattened out. CL Denige might go for a handicap. And the one I like each way in the Arkle is Cours Sublime, Henry de Bromhead's. His first run over fences was fantastic against Fernie Hollow. Second that day, was third at Christmas. Maybe a little bit disappointing at Christmas, but Henry's horses weren't really on fire at that stage. He went back, found a nice little beginner's chase in Gorn, which he came through the test nicely. He's had a couple of weeks off the track, and I think if you're looking at what this lad achieved on his first run in Punchestown with Fernie Hollow, there's a lot of value with him at 14-1.
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks a tasty price there. 16-1 available in a couple of places. So, yeah, value call there for Danny in the Arkle. Stephen, we're bringing you in. Edwardstone in rock solid. We've been covering this horse quite a lot over the last few months on this show. From your bookmaking hat, perhaps from your form hat as well, do you see a negative in him? If he's going to unravel in the Arkle, what are going to be the reasons he doesn't get the job done, if you know what I'm saying, as a 2-1 shot?
Yeah, I mean, he's been vastly improved over fences. I mean, I have tipped him up. I think he's favourite just about on form. The only thing is, I suppose you play the other side of the coin. He's had 3 runs at Cheltenham. He's never finished better than 5th. They were all in red-hot handicaps, though. He ran well, in truth. He's just a much tougher and more polished professional individual now, isn't he? Just coming back to Danny's horse, Cours Sublime, that he mentioned, I fancy him for the Grand Annual. He's in the Grand Annual, Cours Sublime. I don't know where he's going to run. I would much prefer him to run in the Grand Annual. He's got a pretty lenient-looking mark, and I think he'd nearly win that race, and I think he's a similar price for that at the moment, maybe 10 or 12-1. But he's an interesting runner. I thought your horse, Ed, Riviere de Tel, would definitely reverse the form with Blue Lord. There is another but there as well, in that I think Riviere de Tel wants to make the running, and there's a rag in the race, For Pleasure, who always goes 20 lengths clear at a mad gap. He wouldn't help Riviere de Tel, so you end up coming... Perhaps Blue Lord with a patient ride might confirm the form. It's a very, very trappy race. I thought Edwardstone is guaranteed to give his running and was probably favourite, but I think he's short enough now. I've seen 2-1. I mean, I think this is probably sort of 7-2 the field race, to be honest with you. I think there'll be middle pins on the day that you're going to give a good chance to. I mean, I think St. Sam, he's in this race, isn't he? 3rd time lucky if the ground dried out. Again, though, I think he's more of an Aintree horse, to be honest, but a fascinating race. I did select Edwardstone, but I think Riviere de Tel is a big runner if she can lead on her own.
Yeah, Vincent, it's Edwardstone kind of propping up the Irish challenge in here. Of course, Willie Mullins, massively strong hand. Could have Blue Lord, St. Sam, Hallwen Calor. There's loads going in here. I mean, would you be taking Edwardstone on?
Not necessarily now, having said that. I think it's possibly a substandard Arkle. Just the fact that Fernie Hollow was probably the best we had, and Fernie Hollow doesn't go. Blue Lord is one of the current favourites, and I'd always thought the horse would be a better chaser than a hurdler, but you go back to last year, Blue Lord was going to be a very poor second to Appreciated in the Supreme when it fell at the last. So, it's a long way off the top level, realistically. Here, you're talking maybe 10, 12 lengths off what you'd want to be a superstar over hurdles type stuff. Okay, they've done nothing wrong, some of these over fences, but Blue Lord was lucky to beat Riviere de Tel the last day. Is now £2 better off because of the weight issue or the age issue for the filly, that she's now 5, so she's £2 worse off with Blue Lord compared to the last day. There's not going to be anything between the pair of them, is there? Like Riviere de Tel, you have to say, without the mistake the last day, would have been upsides. There's a £2 difference. Is that going to make a huge difference? Probably not. I can't split them. St. Sam wasn't that far behind the pair of them either. So there's a lot of the Irish are kind of beating each other almost. And Edwardstone has to be a player. If I have to put my pin to the mast on this one, I'd go with Riviere de Tel, because the horse has been pretty professional when it ran up a sequence early in the season, wide margin wins. I like horses that front run in Cheltenham generally. So if it's up at the pace, it's always a good thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've nailed our colours to the mast there. But look out for Danny's selection, Course Sublime. Around a 16-1 shot, of course, could end up in the Grand Annual. I'm sure we'll find out in the upcoming days where that horse goes. Right, now on to the big one. The Champion Hurdle, Honeysuckle, of course, the invincible, it seems, Honeysuckle, hedge your market, best price 4 to 7 at the time of recording. Appreciate it. The confidence seems to grow on last year's Supreme winner coming back around 7 to 2 to Hipu, who's begun from strength to strength 8 to 1. Epatante, former champion 10s, Adagio 16s, 20 to 1 bar. Danny, we'll come to you first. We were joking off air. I said I think you're quite bored about talking about this mare, but we're not bored. We're not bored of watching her as racing fans. She's brilliant. Now, whatever you throw at her, she seems to find the answer. And it's, you know, I'm trying to like pick apart her profile and look for a weakness, but there doesn't appear to be an obvious one. Would you share that view?
Yeah, you know, she's unbelievable. She can do it at 2 miles, 2.5 miles. She's done it on heavy ground. She's done it on good ground. She's Honeysuckle, to me at the moment, is pretty much untouchable. But Appreciated is probably the one that's going to give her most to think about. I think without him in the race, she'd be a foregone conclusion. What can he do? You know, he's in great shape. The fact that he's off the track for a year since last year's Supreme, it wouldn't worry you coming from Willie's. He's well able to prep to go there first time. You know, Quigley has done it plenty of times in the past. I think maybe Penn Hill as well.
Yeah. So
that's not a worry. He's in great shape at home. David Casey rides him out all the time, and he's very happy with his work. Honestly, I don't think he can beat Honeysuckle. She's just unbelievable. If I'm looking for one to take her on, maybe at an each way price, and you never know what can happen on a day, it's Epatante. Her jumping at Kempton was back to the old Epatante we used to know. Like last year, she just wasn't getting away from her hurdles near as fast, where this year I was really impressed with her in Kempton. You know, she's back to getting low and slick, and that's what she was back when she won the champion hurdle. Was it 2 years ago? So I think if I'm going to take on Honeysuckle, I'd be doing it with one with a slightly bigger price, that you're playing the each way market, and who knows what could happen.
I mean, just from a jockey's perspective, Danny, when you keep watching the Honeysuckle Road show, where it seems pretty much Rachel Blackmore goes off in front, dictates, runs them all into the ground. I mean, just for argument's sake, if you were going to try and find out a way to beat Honeysuckle, I mean, what would you be trying to do? Would you perhaps serve it up to early doors, or would you try and pounce late doors? I mean, otherwise, you know, you've got to try something, haven't you? So, I mean, if you were looking tactically to try and beat her, would there be an angle in you think you might slightly get the door to open in doing so?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, there's been races in the past where they've gone very fast and she's came through with the test. You know, she can travel away from just off the pace. When they go slow, Rachel usually lines up wide and will get a bit closer to the pace. Not only has Honeysuckle been very good, but Rachel's riding of Honeysuckle has been very good as well, you know, to keep her out of trouble. And she knows she's on the best horse, so she's just putting her in the right place at the right time, and that's been a big part of the story that maybe people forget about a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever scenario the duo find themselves in, they just find a way to come through it. And yeah, the form book and evidence would suggest that. Stephen, I presume you think Honeysuckle's going to win this, but to try and put your betting hat on, have you found an angle in here how we could perhaps take her on from a betting perspective?
I thought she'd win barring accidents. I mean, if she's not in the race, it's probably the worst champion hurdle for 50 years, isn't it? It's not a very good race. I mean, Appreciate It has been put in sort of 4 to 1, mainly, I suppose, because they're worried about seeing each way money if there is going to be more than 8 runners, which there probably just about will be. I suspect on the day, Honeysuckle will end up a lot shorter than 6 to 4, 7 of all on, personally. I can't find a second in. I mean, Epatante won at Kempton. That's her track. She's got speed. I don't think she wants to slog particularly up the Cheltenham Hill these days. She's had issues with her back and other problems. She's got 9.5 lengths to find with Honeysuckle, who's gone forward since, and Epatante hasn't. So I couldn't see Epatante troubling Honeysuckle. The only thing about Honeysuckle, from a punting point of view, if you're going to bet it on the exchanges in running, you must have mega odds bet on Honeysuckle. You can play this back when she gets beat at short head, having traded at 1.01 for £1 million, because she's definitely got a quote, which seems the most ridiculous thing to say about a mare who's won 14 out of 14 under rules. But she definitely half idled in front in Ireland the other day, changed her legs and hung over onto that rail. She's got the potential to sort of wander around. What was that horse, Might Bite, years ago, Ed? Do you remember?
Come on,
wandering around, not quite that stage, but she's a wonderful mare. I hope she wins. But I will be having 1.01 and 1.03 bet on, just to try and win a small house, just in case anything happened.
Stephen looking for crazy shenanigans. I think that's about the only way we get Honeysuckle beaten here. Vincent, have you got an angle into this? I mean, or is this just a race for purists, for fans, just to sit back and watch and just really enjoy?
Yeah, you'd certainly like to see her win. There's no doubt about it. It's for the whole sport, it'll be a huge thing if she wins, and with Rachel on board her and everything else. And it's what we all look for. We all want to see a superstar, and this mare is a superstar. Having said that, she has beaten very little. When you go back through a lot of her runs, they're very ordinary horses. She was beaten time and time again. Horses like Ronald Pump, and they're not champion hurdle horses ultimately. The one horse in here that potentially is Appreciated. Like, Appreciated was very good in the Cheltenham Bumper a couple of years ago, came back then last year and won 27 lengths in the Supreme Novice Hurdle. That was on the same day that Honeysuckle won 6.5 lengths in the Champion. There was only 1.5 seconds slower Appreciated was as a novice running over the same course and distance. Yet I know the horse hasn't had a run since, which is a worry, but as Danny pointed out, not necessarily a worry coming out of Willie's. He's done this time and time again, and he'll do it again. I think this horse, if Appreciated comes here in tip-top form with his A game, he puts it up to her, despite the £7 allowance. The other massive improver we haven't mentioned here is Tihupu, who was very impressive in Gore in the last day. Not quite sure Tihupu is up to this level realistically. And then the other one thing here is that the Bromhead form hasn't been electric over the last few months. That's a slight worry. It's a niggler in the back of the mind. If you were going to be betting odds on here, Honeysuckle, you'd be a bit wary about that. The horses have not really been firing on all cylinders. They've had a few winners here and there, and Honeysuckle, of course, won at the Dublin Racing Festival. But outside of that, there is a slight worry there. And I'd be inclined to have a small bet on Appreciated, because if the horse wins, you'll be happy you won a few quid. And if it doesn't win, you'll be happy that Honeysuckle stretches it to 15 unbeaten and we have an absolute superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of us looking forward to that. For what it's worth, I've tried to go in, when the door shuts climbing through the window. My bet in this is Adagio each way without Honeysuckle at 7-1. I think that Adagio's form figures at Cheltenham are 3 seconds in the first. I think he'll tank into the race, and he probably won't be good enough in the closing stages, but coming into the home straight, he'd be going as well as anything, and probably he's got to come in the top 4 essentially to pick up there. I think it's that kind of champion hurdle. Take Honeysuckle out of it, and I think you could throw a blanket over a lot of these. Moving on swiftly to the mares hurdle, of course, on day 1. Tell me something, girl. For the aforementioned Henry de Bromhead leads the market. Concertista's in there. Obviously, she's very likely to run in the mares chase. Royal Kahala, will she travel? Needs bottomless ground, according to connections. Stormy Island, 6-1. Burning Victory, 8, 9-1. Bar. Danny, tell me something, girl. The right favourite for you? I mean, she's got, obviously, the previous Cheltenham Festival winning form in the book.
Yeah, she's got that previous Cheltenham form in the book, but what she's achieved so far this season, I think she shouldn't be near favourite.
Interesting.
Her third was a solid run behind Royal Kahala and Heaven Help Us in Leopardstown. Maybe that was when Henry's horses were a little bit under the weather. I think she'd need to improve plenty from that. She was well beaten her first run of the year in Punchestown, and she got beat after the festival in Punchestown last year. She was taking on the Geldens in that Grade 1 at the Punchestown Festival last year, but I'd be looking elsewhere here. Concertista is probably unlikely to run in the race. She'll go, I'd imagine, for the mare's chase.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at Stormy Ireland. who won the Relkiel hurdle. She maybe a few argued she was lucky when Brewing Up a Storm fell that day, but I felt she was going to get on top. You know, her best work can be going to the line. She's a tough little mare. She's proven she can travel over to Cheltenham. She won a Grade 1 at the Punchestown Festival against the mares last year, over 2.5, and she's won over the trip in Cheltenham as well. Royal Kahala just beat Heaven Help Us, who also runs in the race, in that race with Tell Me Something Girl in Leopardstown at Christmas. Peter Fahey has said he wants plenty of rain, which is a possibility still. I suppose closer to the day you'll be watching that a bit closer as to whether or not she will run. But Royal Kahala, she deserves, to be near the top of the market. I think she can confirm form with Tell Me Something Girl. And you're looking at the others. Queen's Brook, she was second the last day in Punchestown behind Burning Victory, who also is likely to run in the race. I don't see that form being turned around. Queen's Brook had, won a conditions hurdle in Fairy House, and previous to that she was second in a mare's hurdle in Wexford. I think she needs to improve. She's a bit slow. And the one that's of the shorter price that I'd give a good chance to as well is Heaven Help Us. Her record around Cheltenham is very good. She's won a maiden hurdle there. She won the Coral Cup. She had a pipe opener the last day behind Honeysuckle over a trip that was just way too short for her, but was second, just beating the neck behind Royal Kahala and Leopardstown at Christmas, and also had a decent enough run in the international hurdle in Cheltenham when only beaten 10 lengths over 2 miles as well. So there's a lot to like about Heaven Help Us with her course record, but it's an open race. I think there's not much value in the favourite here. Tell Me Something Girl, I'd be chancing one of the other ones.
Do you know if you'll be riding Heaven Help Us in this race, Danny?
I'm not sure yet. I suppose that'll be closer to the time, depending on how many runners Willie will have in the race and what way the cookie crumbles in that respect. So that'll be decided, I'd say, in the coming days.
Yeah, absolutely. One to keep an eye on there. Stephen, you got a strong view in this assignment?
Not a strong view. I thought Royal Kahala was the one who wants the rain to arrive, as Danny said, tough and reliable. Some people have said, well, one run at Cheltenham tailed off well back 9-2. Right gamble on the day in the Grade 2 last year, but went lame that day apparently.
Yeah.
So that was the excuse. There's come back better than ever this season. Tough, durable, still improving. Perhaps a shade overpriced because nobody knows the trainer, and it's not trained by Willie or Gordon, so that might help. But not a betting race for me. A race to watch. It could be a good quality renewal this year, to be fair. It looks much more competitive than some of the years gone by.
And Vincent, yourself, is this one you're sitting out, or are you pushing the buttons here?
No, I'd be agreeing with Danny here on one of these. Heaven Help Us. I think Heaven Help Us can't be too far away. 9-length winner of a Coral Cup last year. That's a good performance. And as I said, loads of course form. The trainer, whatever about the Royal Kahala trainer not being known to too many, very few in the racing world know Paul Hennessy, who trains Heaven Help Us, but he's a very high class greyhound trainer. So obviously he's been able to move something from one department to the other here to keep this horse improving. It's one of the only horses he has, as far as I know. He has very few runners anyway. But Heaven Help Us is very good. She wasn't beaten far. I'd say it was only a neck in it in Leopardstown the last day, and could have won. She was just caught close home. I'd expect her to be primed for this and put up a good show at an each way price. Definitely worth a chance.
Okay, strong nod for that mare then. I'm getting true Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga style. I really will break into chorus if Tell Me Something Girl can get the job done for Henry de Bromhead. I'm trusting Henry to have a spot on for the day. Danny, we'll move on to look at some of the other races on the rest of the card on Tuesday. I'm up against it for time here, but Gaelic Warrior, obviously in the Boodles, is a horse, a talk horse, quite literally, in the sense that we haven't seen him run for Willie Mullins yet. Obviously a French import, been allotted a BHA mark of 129. Now, there's a couple of interesting viewpoints I want to throw to you, Danny. I mean, some people, when you live in the very small world, which is Twitter, saying, how can you possibly go and back a horse at 11-4 who's not even run yet, blah, 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 blah. And yet someone else has said, well, how many horses have by Rich and Willie Mullins have not been rated significantly higher than a mark of 129. So I can kind of see which way all the viewpoints here. I mean, this is a horse you've got any experience of at home, or you've seen working, or any kind of insight on Gaelic Warrior, because clearly one of the best backed horses in the handicaps in the build up to the Cheltenham Festival.
Yeah, he looks the part at home. He works very well. I think on his French form, his rating would have translated to 139. So interesting that the British handicapper has only given him 129. I suppose that's the fact that people are getting most excited about. The fact that he's first run for Willie, that's not a concern. He's coming out of France. He's had 3 runs over hurdles. The amount of schooling they do in France, that's unbelievable. That won't be any issue to him. I suppose he's a talking horse, and he has to go and prove it on the day. From what you'd see of him on the gallop at home, he deserves to be favourite and has every chance of delivering on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those great unknowns, but as you say, off 129 could potentially be chucked in. Stephen, will come to you. Is there anything else in the rest of the card that's taken your eyes? And I'm going to pin you down here whilst we're at it. Give me your best bet on the Tuesday at Cheltenham. What's really kind of floating your boat here?
Well, I think Constitution Hill's going to be my nap, with the proviso that I want the ground to be at least soft, and so the more rain, the better for that one. The one I thought was interesting, and it's stealing someone's thunder. Gordon Elliott, in his recent interview, said about Death Duty in the Ultima, who slipped a stone down the weights and bounced back to form aged 11 last time out in Ireland. Now, he does stay extreme distances, and he's in the Grand National in a month's time after that. So I could see him picking up the pieces late. He's 16-1 for the Ultima. He could run a really big race. I know you've got that penned in for the UK trainers, though, Ed, just to try and get up to sort of 2 on the week, haven't you? But perhaps Gordon might steal it back off you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my best bet on the Tuesday comes in the Ultima. Corrick Rambler for Lucinda Russell. I think he's got a major chance. Obviously, it wasn't the best of preparations by unseating in the Reynoldsstone last time out, but Novices have a phenomenal record in the Ultima. I think they've won it 4 times in the last 5 years, or last 10 years. Kustar Sivila, Wichita Lineman, on top Paul 2. There's been a couple others as well. Yeah, a race where Novices tend to do really well, I suppose, because the handicapper just hasn't got to grips with them yet. Vincent, handicap's your kind of thing, or is that where you go and make yourself a cup of tea?
No, I like handicaps. They're my thing. Totally. Yeah, you can always find a little sleeper somewhere down in amongst them. Having said that, my bet of the first day, it's been my bet for quite a while, is Run Wild Fred in the National Hunt Chase at the end of the card. Really fancy this horse. I think he's made for the profile is perfect. His second season novice. He was second in a Tayestas Chase, second in an Irish Grand National, won a Troy Town Chase the last time. Can't see him being far away. The one question is who's going to ride him. He's a Gigginstown owned horse. Jamie Cobb doesn't ride for Gigginstown, so I'm not quite sure who'll ride him when the day comes. I've looked at seeing who Gigginstown have used over the last number of months, the likes of young Pat Taff and Harry Swan and a few others in the UK as well, but I'm not quite sure who'll get the ride. That'll be an interesting factor. Obviously, it could be squeaky bum time for me when we see who eventually gets to sit up on it. But the other one here to mention is in the Ultimate. There's a horse in there called Ben Dundee. That has a chance. A lot of the Irish horses have been, the English handicapper has thrown them way up. Some of them include, there's a horse called Ard Hill, we might talk about later on in Gordon Elliott's. It's got a mark now that's 15 pounds higher than its Irish mark, running at Cheltenham. Whereas Ben Dundee is only £1 higher. The horse was third in the Close Brothers to a Plutard in 2019, fifth in the Brown Advisory last year, beating just 5 lengths off the same mark it runs off. It was second to Schoolboy Hours the last day, fourth in the Kerry National earlier in the season. Like, solid form. I can't see that being too far away. A horse that runs well in Cheltenham anyway at a nice price.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen, for your input. That brings the Tuesday preview to a close, and we'll now get stuck into Wednesday's action.